Welcome to Art Talk with April. I'm April Harris. I'm the artist of Inked April, located in Birmingham, Alabama. And this podcast is going to be about all things art. We'll talk about books, invite some artists to interviews, and much, much more. Let's get started. They're considered radicals. They didn't follow the rules, painting outdoors, depicting scenes of modern urban life. Instead of historic, biblical, or mythological themes, they received plenty of criticism early on. It tore down the traditional art at its roots. The art critics were outraged. This is the story of Impressionism as seen by the Academy. Sometimes I think these same attitudes continue through no matter what time. Change is difficult. Change is hard to understand. We like what we're familiar with. We like what we're comfortable with. And we want to be able to categorize different types of art and know what's good and what's bad, and know what's valuable and what's not valuable, and kind of label different types of art so that we can better understand it and feel comfortable. The reason that I'm talking about this today is because as a traditional artist, like I grew up as a traditional artist, and one of the things that I always not always, but recently had thought about digital art, digital paintings and digital illustration. In fact, I actually took some courses from an illustrator who was very popular and was offering to help other artists and illustrators in their careers, and she was offering one-on-one packages where she would, guide you through your career and give you advice and that kind of thing. And one of the things that she said early on is that I needed to move to digital art, and that was so difficult for me to accept. And this was years and years ago, like close to 10 years ago. And I just felt like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no way that digital art could ever possibly be as good as traditional art. And lately, and one of the reasons why I'm doing this sort of diary vlog post for the podcast today is because in the past week or so, there have been posts about it's traditional artists that are saying it's an NFT that you can touch. And I think that is so funny and so interesting because it's the same scenario. It's the same thing that happened with Impressionism. The Impressionists, their paintings were seen as completely unfinished, rough and ugly, and people were just like turning their noses up to them. And we think about Impressionism today in a completely different way. In fact, it's probably one of the isms that is most appreciated globally. It's on all types of products. There are movies. Have you been to the Van Gogh show that's been going around that is actually a digital show? It's so I don't even have the words how silly it all is to me to watch these traditional artists, kind of disconnecting themselves from the idea of digital or NFTs. It's so funny. As a graphic designer and someone who appreciates illustration in the digital form, in like vector illustrations and drawings, I can see the draw to the digital side. And for years, actually, I've tried to do illustration myself through Photoshop and Illustrator and that kind of thing. And I could see a commercial aspect of it where it would be used sort of in magazines and books, and it's way more easily reproduced, basically. because it's in a digital format. In the days of internet computers, it's something that can be sent via an email and printed out in a book across the world, right? It's one of those things where I always felt like it had its place. It wasn't until the past couple of years, and I'm not sure if it was the pandemic or having a second child, that may have drawn me to my iPad and trying different drawing apps and just experimenting, playing with it. You know, it's easier. It's in the sense of I don't have to get out paper or canvas or wood panel, and I don't have to get out paints and brushes and water and things like that, you know, make it really difficult to work and create when you have two young children running about and, you know, your house is a disaster. You don't really have, you know, many clean surfaces or places to work where your art couldn't possibly get bent or, you know, smudged or, you know, whatever it is, right? So in that sense, not having that physically fragile piece of artwork that you have to keep safe and clean and nice. In that sense, creating artwork on an iPad or a computer, I mean, there's just nothing more safe, right? And with today's technologies, I cannot stress the ridiculous way that you can actually reproduce some of these mediums in such a realistic way, and that it really looks like a traditional medium that we're familiar with, like oil paintings or watercolors. So in the past couple of years, like I said, I've been doing more digital art. It's just been tremendously effective for me to be able to get out that creativity, to experiment, to try different things. I've even in some ways, you know, like done a sketch digitally and then printed it out and started to create a traditional watercolor piece with a printed out sketch, right? Which is really helpful and smart because you can, you know, trace your sketches and not have to erase and all of that. But when you think about it, it's still the same thing where we have society and culture and an art world that is hesitant to accept a new medium. Now, digital art has been around for decades. This is not a new thing. However, it's becoming more and more accessible. And then with the advent of NFTs that we can use in the digital world, in the digital realm of, say, the metaverse, of course, it's so unusual. It's so different than what we've experienced, but it's becoming more and more affluent and accepted. And it's like a battle line has been drawn for the traditional artists where, and I, you know, as I am a traditional artist, I am, but I am also not afraid to try new things. And so I explore, you know, digital art and digital illustration and different things like that because I'm also a graphic designer. I also edit videos and do animations and things like that. And so I'm already kind of a multimedia artist, creative person, right? So I do all different kinds of things. So it's not that big of a deal for me to pick up an iPad and open an Adobe software and start playing with it and end up liking it. Another thing that I thought about recently was, you know, the idea and concept of digital art not having an original. With NFTs, it's that artwork is coded as an original, and people are spending money on this, lots of money on this. It's so funny to me. I just cannot get over it, you guys, how the traditional artists are coming after these NFTs And the cleverness of saying it's an NFT that you can hold, that you can touch, is just so great. I just think that is so awesome. However, I'm actually leaning towards the digital these days. So I'm able to look at it from different points of view. I understand the value of traditional art, and I also understand the value of something new, something different that is going to change the face of what art is, right? And these changes have happened decade after decade, come into fruition that weren't there before. Things that weren't accepted, but then became like the thing. Think about the age when abstraction was coming into play and what an impressionist artist might have felt about an abstract modern artist, and how they would roll their eyes and look at these artists' work as if they were just ridiculous, right? They don't even, they're not even creating faces that look like faces anymore. They've broken it down into shapes and colors and textures, and how it was just probably unusual and weird that they just shunned it. And think about if they had had social media, the types of reels they would have created and posts where they would have been like, it's a portrait that you can tell who the person is. It's just so wild and so fun to me to just see the world evolving into these different things and changing. And you can kind of see where people are not accepting change. But honestly, art is about change. Art is about a journey, evolving and metamorphosizing into something else. That's the entire process in itself. We start with crayons or pencils or markers as a child, and then we try something new, and then we find what we like. But at no point do we feel like any part of it is less than something else, right? But then something comes along that is so new, so unusual, so difficult to accept. Some of these NFTs are really unusual. Some of them are very simple in form. Some of them are GIFs or animations and things like that. And it's really difficult for someone who is trained as an oil painter to accept a GIF as being a competitor in the art industry. It's creating a whole new category of what we define art as. So I just wanted to talk about this real world, real time. This is the thing that's been on my mind lately, and I think it's awesome. So right now, if you're listening to this podcast, you can actually go over to my YouTube channel, and I'm going to be doing a digital painting illustration while this voiceover plays. And I gotta say, as a traditional artist, I'm really not doing much differently than what I would be doing with a set of color pencils or watercolors. So, of course, there are tools that I'm using, where I can transform and change shapes and scale something larger or smaller, move it around in a way that traditional painting doesn't allow me to do. But it's not any less of an art form than pulling out a piece of paper and painting it. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. I would love to hear what you think about the difference between traditional and digital, and in the terms of change and transitions within the art world in the past. I think this is a really cool subject, and I hope you have something to say, something to add to the conversation. Thank you for listening to Art Talk with April. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe.